So I am Karl Storchmann, and we're just wrapping up our Wine Econ conference in Padua, Italy. You might see this in the backdrop. There's this wonderful cathedral. And so we had 150 talks, presentations, all on wine economics, wine statistics, and so forth. And we're just wrapping this up and have a couple of people here that have been important for the Journal of Wine Economics and are or will become very important in the field of wine business, wine economics. So like everything is going big data and statistics, I think the first person I want to talk to is Bob Hodgson. I have known Bob Hodgson for many years. When I worked at the Whitman College, where we started this group and the Journal of Wine Economics, back in 2008 he called me up on the phone because he is an ex-student of Whitman College and saw that we founded the Journal of Wine Economics. Why did you call me up back then?
Oh my, well I had been doing some work on at the California State Fair on evaluating judge performance. And I'd been working on this for several years, and every year I would present a paper to the board at the California State Fair. And they would say, oh well, this is very fine, but we don't want this to be published. Well finally, when I got introduced to Karl, I sent him a copy of his paper. Karl in turn sent it around to his editors, and he says, "We want this paper." So that was the beginning. That was back in 2008, and I've been coming here ever since, presenting the work that I've done.
And that paper was about the wine fair and the tastings that they do at the wine fair. And it sounds like little, but it was a huge topic. It was in the press everywhere. And it was like about how they do the blind tastings, right? And
Yeah.
that is like, there's a huge random component in this. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about it.
Well, it's a huge random component. Basically, we ended up giving the judges triplicate samples of the same wine, poured from the same bottle, served on the same flight. So here, among maybe 10 to 20 wines on a table, 3 of those wines were identical. The judges gave them scores ranging from no award to gold medal. It was astounding. When I first saw this, I was surprised. After a few years of doing this, I was not surprised anymore. It was a common thing.
So that, I think that shook really the wine world in its foundations. And but let me go also to Robin Goldstein, who did a similar thing. It's not wine judging, but you're famous also for a couple of things. So the both of you have made the wine journal just enormously big. And so that changed for sure our world and for sure the wine world. So Robin did something. I met him actually a year after I met you, Bob. And that was at our second Econ conference, and it was in Portland, Oregon. So maybe you can tell us what happened there. This came totally out of the blue to everybody.
Yeah, I met you, Karl, through the work I'd done. Actually, I'd been in wine publishing and food and wine books that I'd written. But in the process of putting together a wine guide, we ran a big blind tasting of 500 tasters, 6,000 glasses. And actually our initial goal was just to try to see which cheap wines were the best, which cheap wines were worth recommending. And we used a panel of tasters. And the idea was to do a consumer tasting panel. So we surveyed a lot of just everyday wine consumers and a mix of experts as well. And got a very surprising result that I didn't actually expect, which was that it turned out that when we solicited ratings from everyone, that the cheap wines did better than the expensive wines in our tasting. And so I called up a couple of economists. My background is in law and economics, but I wasn't an economist by training. And I called up a couple of economists and statistician friends to help me analyze the data. And sure enough, there was a statistically significant inverse correlation between people's preferences and the prices. I thought this was very weird. And that same year, this is also 2008, this is a magical year for my involvement in AAWE, just like Bob's. And but around the same time, we were about to publish this book, and I'd been also very suspicious, not just about wine ratings, critics' ratings, which were very correlated with price, in contravention of our results. But so the same year, I wanted to see what the Wine Spectator Awards of Excellence, what the standards were for these awards. And so just before I was about to present my results about the correlation between price and preference at the AAWE conference in Portland, I did a little bit of an undercover expose kind of study where I submitted a fake restaurant to the Wine Spectator Awards of Excellence program. And the Wine Spectator Award of Excellence program gives awards to the best wine restaurants in the world every year, a few thousand restaurants around the world. What you have to do to enter, it turned out, was to submit your wine list along with a menu of the restaurant and fill out some information and the all-important $250 entry fee. And so I made up a restaurant that didn't exist, and to put together the reserve wine list, I went through the Wine Spectator's database and found the worst, lowest rated wines that they'd ever reviewed from Italy. I said the restaurant was in Milan. We sent in this restaurant, so question one was, did the restaurant have to exist to get a Wine Spectator Award of Excellence? Question number two was, did it have to have good wine? And sure enough, the only actually contact I got from Wine Spectator was a call a few months later saying, after I'd applied, saying, congratulations, you've won the base level of Award of Excellence. Would you like to also promote your award in our magazine by taking out an ad for a few thousand additional dollars? I declined that, and then in August 2008, just before the Portland AAWE conference, the Wine Spectator issue came out publicizing my restaurant called Osteria L'Intrepido and telling the world about this wine restaurant that had won the award, which didn't exist and had the worst wines that Wine Spectator had ever rated from Italy. And I kept this a complete secret until presenting the paper at AAWE, and I didn't, as Karl said, I didn't know anyone there. And so I got up in front, and I didn't really know how to give an economics presentation either. It was the first economics presentation I ever gave, but I said, I just wanted to present some preliminary research before I start my regular talk. It wasn't in the abstract or anything. I said, so I just told the whole group what I'd done, and I put up a slideshow of the application materials, and I displayed my award. And no one had known about this until that day, that moment.
Yeah.
And within a few hours, I think, of this, it was
because all of the press was there.
Yeah,
There was
the press was there.
Gourmet and Wall Street Journal, and it was everywhere. It took a few hours, and it was everywhere.
Yeah, and thanks to you guys, I mean, within a few hours, I was getting calls from all over the world. I was on like Rai Uno in Italy. We were in national news, and it was amazing because everyone, it was the most interested group of people I could possibly have presented this work to, and I've been involved ever since. I loved the group as well, and it's what really got me more and more interested in economics, which is basically what I'm doing full time now, thanks to this organization.
So that, of course, has changed the world of wine. But it's not only a thing that is important for wine, because that affects all kind of things. So what is the expertise of experts? So you both have kind of the same topic, and seems to be doubtful, maybe at least, if there is any, and it might be even fraudful. So and now we have Magali Delmas of UCLA. So you have done a lot of stuff, and actually the first person who has done anything on eco labels on wine, and what is their impact on prices and quality perception by the experts.
By the experts, yeah. Well, thank you. Actually, I also came to Portland for the first time with you, and you were doing work on climate change.
That's
so
true.
I actually
Yeah.
thought I was kind of a great community, and later on I met my co-author Olivier Jargot, also in Reims, and that started a great collaboration. So I've been looking at the impact of eco-certification, green wines on prices and quality, because the big question is whether the consumers are interested in these wines. And in California, in the US in general, it seems that the consumers are not that interested in these wines. And so there's the question of why do wineries engage in this certification? What do they get out of this certification? And it seems that the winemakers believe that there is an increase in quality, that making these grapes without chemicals will have a better impact on the quality of the grapes and the quality of the wine. And so to look at this, we looked at the wine ratings, again, Wine Spectator, Wine Enthusiast, and Robert Parker, and we did find a slight increase in the ratings of organic and biodynamic wines, which means that the experts seem to like these wines, so there might be this increase in quality. And this work was published in the Journal of Wine Economics, and we got really a fantastic response from the press, and it was really widely distributed, so we're really very excited about that. So we're continuing the research with impact of green wines and quality in France, and also we've done work on price in the US.
So we have here Martin Brown, who is probably, you might have been even there before us. You founded Wine Searcher. I don't know when that was. You are the CEO of Wine Searcher. So you started like before the Journal of Wine Economics even was published, right?
Back in 1999,
Oh,
I
yeah.
started it.
Yeah.
So I was in that, .com pickup, and it used to be the case that I started it when I was living in London, and there are those really quite well-known, famous London wine retailers who are dealing in old Bordeaux and old wines, and it used to take the morning to discover, who had, a case of 1966 something or other, and so I just started this website that just brought together the wine lists of those. That's quite small group of London retailers to save people time. And now, of course, we cover everything that we can all around the world, every price list of a wine retailer that we think is up to date and accurate. And you can discover where any wine is, and we have a database that's very well organized, and you can draw prices, graphs of availability and demand, and critic scores and that sort of thing. So we feel as though we can allow people to do their research more quickly by having direct access to a really solid, well-organized database.
I think for us that is also a pretty important thing. If we can work with you, or you want to work with us, so it helps the econ research, because we're always short of data. We need and it's big. And so, do you think that the wine world is, or the business world in wine is going big data, or what is the future? What is the future of retailing? What is the future of marketing? And so, and what do you think is the role of experts? So that affects all of us. So. Because what you are doing is almost like a thing like crowdsourcing. The stores enter the prices, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and we just pick them up. Our software picks them up. Yeah. Yes, it's interesting. I think that the wine retailing, if you compare it to book retailing, which obviously got centralized so much, and so many bookstores ended up shutting down, that didn't happen to wine. Wine's retained the wide range of players that it's always had. They still all exist. So there is an aspect of the wine world that hasn't gone the way of some other verticals. The internet really changed some verticals, didn't it? And wine retailing, it always surprises me that the old names of wine retailing still exist. Zacky's in New York, and et cetera, all around the world. They're still there. So it's got a different pattern than some other trades, and I think it's a interesting research question.
In the States, it's certainly also thanks to the three-tier law, right? So we have all these laws. Not everybody can sell wine, and you cannot ship it everywhere.
Yeah.
And like in the state of New York, one person cannot have more than one wine store. So all of that is against concentration, at least in retail. There's some concentration in wholesale. So what do you think? What is the future of wine, or of wine research?
Well, I was first going to say, I think one thing that brings together all of what we're talking about is that, and I think what the AAWE stands for is the idea that information and data and analysis and transparency are the tools that the consumer has to fight bullshit in the wine industry. The tools, and also that the wine industry has to fight bullshit within its own circles. And so, we're publishing information and making it accessible for everyone and opening it up, is, I think, so important to the way that the world is changing, and this is a great example of it. You're publishing information that allows people who are shopping in one place to look at what prices are somewhere else and not get ripped off. Bob's work is encouraging consumers everywhere to be more skeptical of wine medals, and so I think that's the way the world's going. It's taking out these middlemen who are just taking rents and Wine Spectator, collecting money for what an awards program that's really just a form of advertising. Informing consumers about what things really are beneath the surface is so important.
Right, but it's also it's a consumer, but it's also the industry. The industry is changing. There are new practices, and we're talking about sustainable practices, for example, but some of this industry is very conservative. And so I think it's also our role kind of to inform the industry of what practices are more likely to lead to some value, market value and demand, and kind of do this work, this analysis. So it's both on the consumer side, more information, but also to the industry, I think.
I found that really cool. Bob, you once were asked, you gave this presentation at UC Davis at our conference. I don't know if you still know it. I think it was 2011. And there was Pooch was there. Pooch was back then, I think, the head of the fair.
Yeah.
And he was fired, right?
Yeah.
But I found that really, really nice. So he was on stage and had to defend the fair, and the entire press was there. And he had the courage. He did the whole thing. And in the end, you were asked by the press, why would any winemaker submit his or her wine to the fair if it's all random? And you said, oh, this is stats. You need to submit it to as many fairs as possible, because it means at one fair you will get a gold or something. And that's actually a fantastic thing, because if consumers believe in this, because for us, I think it's our mission a little bit to bring some sense, some reasoning into that wine world. But you said that, I still know that.
Yeah, and I think what the consumer needs to understand is that the wine fair business is big business. If you simply look at major competition and multiply the number of wines times $100 each, or about there, and say, where does that money go? Some of these competitions don't pay the judges anything. And then they turn around and they invite the consumers to come to an event where the gold medal wines are presented. They charge the consumers $50 to $100 to get in. They don't pay the wineries anything for that. In fact, they charge the wineries to come in and present their own wines. So you have to ask yourself the question, where does all that money go? So the wine competition business is big business. And what I would hope that comes out of all of this is that there'll be more and more pressure on wine competitions to open the inside of the competition to people who are researching this, to understand how both the positive and the negative aspects of the judging process. We need that.
Yeah. I think that's a good finishing word. Thank you very much to all of you. That was a wonderful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.